Let's make sure we've got sound. All right. Welcome aboard, everybody. We'll be getting started in just a minute. Gonna get started in just a minute. Give everybody a chance to pop in. Okay. Let me get back to my screen here. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I can't see who's in the chat, so um, I don't know if it's some of the regulars or if it's new people. But if this is your first episode, Happy New Year to you. If you're one of the regulars, then I hope the year is off to a good start. Parabiology, how you doing, man? And yeah, we'll have to talk at some point offline. I'm just curious to know how your recovery's going. Glad to see you here. Got a little bit of a different show today. The idea is the same, but the approach is going to be a little bit different. We'll get into it. But the title of tonight's show was really Wives versus Potential Ex-Wives. You know the thoughts there. Not everybody who says that they want to be married wants to be a wife. And it's important to understand what the differences are, because I think that what most guys will find is that if you're struggling in the West, part of what you're struggling with is you're struggling to find a woman who you feel is a wife. There are plenty of women out here, but if you're looking for something that's on the caliber of a wife, that's not quite so easy to find. Now, I heavily advocate the Philippines. We'll get into all of that, but I want to start today's show off a little bit differently because normally I would use a video, something like that. But I had this exchange that I just had to use as the kickoff for today because it fits so well into what we were talking about. It's an interesting story. But Saturday, I went to a bar to watch the football games. That's a theme with me. I just find it more fun to go to a bar and yell at the screen and argue with people about whose team's better and whose team stinks and whether somebody got a call right or somebody got a call wrong. That whole community feel to the games is far more entertaining. Generally, I'll do that versus watch a game at home, because if I'm watching a game at home by myself, it means I'm nervous about the outcome. It's a very pivotal game. It's like win or go home, or something, something tragic is going to happen if we lose. And I've got to have the right mojo in that moment. I got to be in my lucky chair with the shirt, the right jersey. I have to be in my setting. Now, we all know that there's no mystic karma that's happening, but I just feel better during those pivotal games when I'm at home. This wasn't that situation. But while I'm at this bar, it gets interesting because there's a crowd next to me. And there's this one guy who plops down in the stool right next to mine. Now, the guy's a little bit drunk. He's got this vape, and I think he's vaping marijuana. So he's a little bit stoned. And I think he sat down because he needed some stability. It wasn't him necessarily wanting to sit next to me. It was just that was the seat that was available, and he kind of needed to stabilize himself. You know how it is with that drunk guy who's sitting next to you, and he starts getting really chatty. You don't necessarily feel like getting into a deep conversation with the guy because he's going to be all over the place. But he asked a very interesting question. He looked at me and he said, "What's your New Year's resolution?" Total stranger, never saw the guy before. But that was the right question to get me engaged in a conversation because I just posted my New Year's resolution, made a video about it. So I thought, okay, I'll play along because you said something that I care about. Told him that my New Year's resolution was Cebu 2024. Now he looks at me and says, your resolution is to go to the Philippines? And I said, well, that's not all of it. My resolution is to make Cebu 2024 better than Cebu 2023. We keep going through this conversation, and he starts to talk to me about the Philippines. But he's using a lot of these very generic talking points that you'll hear about guys traveling to the Philippines to find broke, uneducated women from the farm. All the stuff you hear on social media. So I just started to break things down for him. Really helped him to understand that his perception of the Philippines wasn't anywhere close to what the actual Philippines was. The guy's drunk. He's appreciating what I'm saying, but, he's kind of trying to win the argument. So he goes on to talk about how he enjoys his life in the States. He uses his dating apps. And he basically was bragging about all of the tricks he used to get women to sleep with him. that was the point in the conversation where I just kind of redirected him because I said, look, you and I are not talking about the same thing. You're talking about women who you want to sleep with. I'm talking about finding wives, finding serious relationships. Now, it's interesting because, drunk as he was, stoned as he was, when I brought that up, he had that moment of sobriety where he sort of stopped and processed what I was saying. And he realized that we were talking about two entirely different things. And I was talking about something meaningful, while he was really just talking about partying and goofing off. I mean, I asked him why he would prefer to play games and sleep around if he could find the kind of relationship he was looking for, something meaningful with a wife. And it was at that point that he started to rethink things a bit. We got into a conversation about what the Philippines looks like, talked about the channel. He actually wanted to see my numbers, and he realized that my channel's small but growing, but the number of people who were tuning in, despite the size of my subscriber base, didn't really match. A lot of people want to hear this message. And just like he changed his demeanor, a lot of it comes from the conversation about wives. It's one thing to talk about dating. It's one thing to talk about running around, playing games, getting into this dating nonsense. But it's a very different conversation when you're talking about wives. Someone's complaining about there not being enough good men out there. You can say that about dating. But if you're a wife, there are plenty of good men out here if you're looking to be a wife. Difference in the conversation. If you're talking about what men deserve and don't deserve, that's one thing if you're talking about dating. But who's going to use that line of rationale if they're talking about their husband? Because that's not the kind of thing that makes sense to be coming out of the mouth of someone who wants to be a wife. Wife is about reciprocity. Wife is about pouring into your spouse just as much as they are pouring into you. And as it goes back to what this guy was talking about, and as it goes back to why some people have a problem with the content, it's that very simple idea that not everybody who says they want to be married wants to be a wife or a husband for that matter. This guy might have used that line with women, but that clearly wasn't his objective. He was just looking to have fun. So, to the guys who tune in to my channel after the fact, to the 30% of women who tune into my channel, I want to be very clear about something. This is a show for people who want real relationships, meaningful relationships. And I make no bones about the fact that I think it's much easier to find a wife in the Philippines than it is in the States. That is my message. And I am open to having that debate with anybody who wants to have it. A lot of keyboard warriors will comment, but not everybody actually wants to have the conversation about finding a wife. Dano, the Junkyard Dog, what's up, man? I am glad to see that you've been able to make it to the chat. I know you've been trying to join on the lives. Dano, we've got parabiology in here. Para, this is Dan. We've seen Dan's interview. Dan, for perspective, where parabiology and I are working behind the scenes. He's going to potentially be the next interview that I do. Just depends on when we can get him scheduled. So I'll be interested in seeing what you guys have to say. Dano's got quite the sense of humor, so we'll have to buckle up to see where he's going with the conversation. But I am happy that he was finally able to make it to a live. So glad you're both here. But one of the things we're going to talk about that's a little different today is this whole idea of kind of red flags and green flags, because I often say that in the States, you can find lots of women, but you can also find lots of red flags. In the Philippines, you can find lots of women and lots of green flags. And that is why the Philippines is so attractive. So I want guys to understand the options. Ultimately, you're going to do what you want to do. I just want you to make an informed decision. And some of that comes from having a conversation about what's actually available versus what's not. Um, just looking at Dan's comment, he said, I'm eager to hit Cebu, but I think there are more scammers over there. Moi, humor. Perish the thought. So, a couple of things I'm going to say for perspective. Junkyard Dog hasn't been to the Philippines yet, but he got his passport. He's got the motivation. He's planning. So I understand why he's saying what he's saying. Look, don't get me wrong. The Philippines is not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. You can go to the Philippines and you can find bad women there, just like you can stay in the States and find bad women here. But there are a lot of good women in the Philippines. And I've actually done the math. If you're looking for a serious relationship, the percent of women in the Philippines, potentially even the actual raw number of women in the Philippines, who are the kinds of women you're looking for and who are looking for real relationships, it's a lot higher than it is in the States. American women treat me like used tires. See, you're hitting on part of the problem. Well, there is so much to this, and part of what we're going to do is get into it. But I want you to, let's think about something that's a difference between the Philippines and the States. Find a woman in the States who's 22. And where's her head as far as relationships go? Well, more than likely, she's young. She's looking to have fun. She's not ready to get married. She's not looking for anything serious. That is going to be more typical. And more importantly, when you look at our society, that is going to be viewed as more socially acceptable. That's more normal. If a woman who's 22 is talking about how she's partying too much, probably needs to tone it down, is having a lot of fun, is meeting a lot of people, most of Western society is going to say, yeah, head nod. That's what you should be doing at 22. That is an actual message that our culture is pushing to young women about how they should be living at that stage of their life. Look at a Filipina who's 22. That 22-year-old is more likely than not looking for a husband. She doesn't want to sleep around. She doesn't want to be a hot girl. She's not looking to see how many beautiful men she can spend a night with. That's not their culture. And that's also not socially acceptable. The woman in the Philippines who's sleeping around is going to be looked at as a loose woman. That's not admirable. That's just not who they are. And as a man, if you are looking for a wife, well, in the Philippines, they start looking for husbands sooner. They start looking for husbands a whole lot more diligently, and they are offering something in exchange for the security and the stability that their husband is providing. So the notion of jumping through my flaming hoops to prove that you're worth my time is not part of their mindset. They start the relationship off giving. They maintain the relationship by giving. You can find a wife and a life and kids in the Philippines far more easily than you can find it in the States. Dano's comments, 22-year-old American girls are girls who are worse than useless. They know it all and expect to marry rich bodybuilders. Oh, yeah. Oh, we're gonna get into that because you're right. The expectations at 22, well, the expectations in general in the States are just very different than they are outside the States. But it goes back to this idea that not everybody who says that they want to be married actually wants to be a wife. And if you look at marriage rates in the States, It's no surprise that they're declining. You can see that by looking at the census, by looking at tons of things. You'll generally see a pretty steady trend. Marriage rates are on the decline. Divorce rates are actually on the decline, which makes sense. Fewer people are getting married, so fewer people are getting divorced. Those numbers pretty much go hand in hand. But the question isn't so much what's happening, but why. Because you see, I don't believe that marriage rates are on the decline because fewer men want to get married. I actually don't think that's the case. I think it goes a little deeper than that. I think men still want commitments from women who matter. I just think men are having a harder time finding wives. Or more specifically, they're having a harder time figuring out who's a wife versus who's a potential ex-wife. And what we don't want is to get divorced. Because divorce, more often than not, is going to wreck the man, not the woman, in that situation. So, for guys who are still looking for wives, they're out there. And this is all part of what I normally do when I'm talking about the advantages of the Philippines. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the West today. Because as I was talking to this drunk guy who's drunk and stoned and just mouthing off, he made me reflect upon something that I think I haven't hit on as hard as I could, but it's important. It's kind of the notion of like Alcoholics Anonymous. And before you can get an alcoholic to start improving, they need to acknowledge that they're an alcoholic. Like, until you admit that you have a problem, there's nothing to fix. You're not an alcoholic. You're just somebody who likes to drink. You can quit when you want. You can do what you want. That whole notion can keep somebody from ever improving because they don't get to that ground zero where they say, hey, I can't keep going the way I'm going. And I think that's a big part of the problem that we have in dating is that a lot of the guys who haven't become passport bros haven't fully acknowledged the problem there is in the West. They keep shopping around for someone new. They keep hoping that they can find this princess that they're searching for. But time and time again, they're bumping their heads. Time and time again, they're going back to the drawing board with nothing because it hasn't fully sunk in yet how hard it's going to be for them to find a wife in the Philippines. You want to sleep around, you want to party, you want to have some fun. Plenty of women for that. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm talking about wives. I'm talking about relationships. And that is what we are going to be drilling into. Yeah. I'm going to switch back over, take a look at the comments, and then we're going to come into we're going to get into the meat of something that I want us to take a good hard look at. Because if you are not sold on looking for a wife, looking for a relationship outside the United States, I think you're going to want to see some of the numbers that we have because they paint a very interesting picture of what you're facing in the States and what you probably want to run away from. Let me see. Let me get caught up with the chat here. 22-year-old Filipinos are inexperienced in life's problems, but some are willing to learn from an older man. I agree with that. The Filipinos who I see, the young Filipinos who I see, the old Filipinos who I see, they're cooperative. I don't meet these defiant Filipinos who want to be boss babes, who are looking for men to basically emasculate. That's not the goal there. The goal there is to be a loyal and loving wife. I see Filipinos who are celebrating their husbands. And it baffles me how when I look at social media, when I look at the podcasters who are in the Philippines and talking about the Philippines, all of the women in the Philippines are basically saying the same thing. Look at all of these lovely young women who are looking for husbands over and over and over again. That's the theme. They've got more wives than they know what to do with. They're looking for more men to show up. There's a dating service. I don't remember the name of it. Well, I'm actually not going to promote them because I don't know their cost structure and some of their issues. But basically, they run essentially a speed dating service in Cebu. So like 20 guys will travel over for a couple of days, and these 20 guys will be in a room with 100 Filipinas, and they just rotate tables. So you're going to sit down and you're going to talk to these 5 Filipinas. You've got 10 minutes, and then we're going to rotate you around. And you're going to spend an evening bouncing around through these Filipinas. You've seen their pictures before, but this is your chance to actually talk to them and figure out if you can make a connection. They don't have enough husbands for the wives who are available, which is the complete opposite of the situation I see in the West, where there aren't enough wives for the husbands who are searching. And that's also demonstrated by the fact that the guys who I see going to Cebu who are looking for relationships, they're coming back engaged. They're coming back expectant fathers. They're coming back with wives. And you don't see that in the States. You also don't see women from the States flying to other countries because they need husbands. See, the husbands recognize that they need wives. You don't have wives who are saying, what do I need to do to find a husband? It just doesn't exist. That tells me it's not really here. Let me see. Getting back to chats here. Dano is always right. One Pinay told me to change my handle to Dano's Drunkard Vlog. Ha! Like that. I don't know. I am nervous to see what you're like drunk, Dan. You're a barrel of laughs sober, so yeah, that could be dangerous, but we'll see. Let me see. The Philippines are looking at making divorce easier. They are. They need to make it easier to hold the runaway Filipinos who abandon their pregnant girls accountable. Now, a note on that, because you're right, divorce is coming to the Philippines, but my understanding is that it's kind of worst case scenario divorce, and I'm not sure when it's actually going to be implemented. So we're not looking at kind of what we deal with in the West, which is no fault divorce and irreconcilable differences and basically this easy out for people who don't really want to work at their marriage. This is, from what I've read, worst case scenario. So physical abuse or someone who has a disease. And it's actually not just disease, because I remember them getting into this issue and saying they would actually look at your disease and kind of say, what do you have? Do you have something that's curable? Or do you have something like, HIV? So not even in those cases would it be, would that be a one size fits all out? So it will be introduced, still going to be difficult in all but the worst cases. However, what we have to recognize is that that's the first step down this long, dark road. Sure, if they introduce divorce in the next year, and it's worst case scenario, well, that's setting a precedent. Before you know it, there are going to be increasingly more cases that they want to consider divorce worthy. Eventually, you're going to have the same problem in the Philippines that you have here. It's easy to get divorced. You don't have to work at your relationship. And one of the biggest drivers of divorce around the world is how easy it is to get one. Where it's easy to get a divorce, people get divorced a lot. Where it's hard to get divorced, they don't. It's that simple. Philippines is still a Shangri-La. The Philippines is going to eventually fall. Something will rise to take its place, but who knows when that'll be or where that'll be. What I do know is the Philippines has wives right now. So for the guys who are looking for wives right now, that's the place to go. Popping in with, so Some more of the comments. I aspire to become an alcoholic, but I don't have the stomach for it. Okay, fair enough. There are lots of routes to get there. I'm not going to encourage you, but I hear you. I believe the problem in both countries is the girl's family. My perfect wife, rest in peace, had a crap family that I had to deal with. Yeah, we didn't. I won't go into those details unless you open the door more on that, because I know that we talked about some of the things that you were working through after we had done the interview. We got into some of your history and some of the things that you were working through. So, yeah, if you want to get into that, more than happy to have that conversation. If you don't, totally get it. I want to develop Gene's Pinay filter. I wish I could trust them, even my special Pinay. Yeah, I'll tell you, Dan. One of the things I want to do for you specifically, I want to get you to the point where you don't wait for this one person before you go to the Philippines. I understand the conversations you've had and the history you have. I'm not knocking any of that. And if that's where your heart is set, then keep it there. But I want you to get to the Philippines and just see what it's like. See what the people are like. See what the women are like. Develop a familiarity with the Philippines. Because one of the things that I've seen is when I talk to guys who haven't been, they have a hard time really appreciating the magic of the Philippines. You haven't seen that world. You keep looking at that world through an American lens, and you're thinking about what women are like here, and you're trying to figure out how Filipinas are a little different than the women here. But what you miss is the fact that they are fundamentally different. They are fundamentally more traditional compared to Western women who are fundamentally way more liberal. The whole free love, have sex, get married when you're 45 and you can barely still have a kid thing that you see in the West does not exist over there. The way they date, the way they focus, the way they prioritize, it's entirely different. And when you see it, it makes sense. But sometimes you have to see it before you understand it, because you keep looking at it through the filter of Western women, and that's just not how they are. Okay, let me see what we've got here. What exactly do the Pinays want? Security, a fun night or two out, or true love? I think that all women want security. We're going to get into this, but the chat is alive, and I don't want to miss any of the chats. I think that women are women all around the world, and all around the world, women want financial security. But two things. One is, what does financial security look like? Because Western financial security seems to be kind of this ridiculous standard. You need to be an NBA player to deliver it. In the Philippines, not so much. Financial security can look very different. They're not all aspiring to be millionaires and with fancy cars and massive houses. They're just much more practical with what they want. So I think all women want security at different levels. But the other part is, what else do they want? Because it's one thing for a woman to only be with you for your money. It's another thing for a woman to be with you because you can provide the financial security she wants, but you can also provide other things she wants, like companionship, family, kind of a role in a life. And I see a lot more of that in the Philippines than I see in the West. So we'll come to, we've got a lot. You guys already know where a lot of the show is going to go. I heard one story where the engaged man paid for his fiance's apartment, then learned her Filipino lover was living with her. Yeah, I've heard those. Generally, when I hear those stories, though, if you dig into those stories, when I've dug into those stories, what I've found is the guys were being kind of silly. in my opinion, some of those guys are being really dumb. It's like you went to the Philippines, you spent a week with this woman, you came back, and then you bought her an apartment, and you also told her that you're not going to see her again for a year. Well, okay, she spent a week with you, and she's not going to see you again for 12 months, but you bought her an apartment? That's not how I would operate. No way would I do something like that. I don't tell guys to send Filipinas money before they've even met them. I don't think that's a good way to go. I definitely don't recommend someone investing heavily in a woman that they've only known for a week, although guys do it. Still be smart. You still have to vet. Part of the problem we have is that you've got guys over here who have been so removed from dating, so removed from intimacy, that when they get a taste of it, they lose their minds. They go to the Philippines and there's an attractive woman who's actually interested in them, who's sleeping with them and telling them she cares and showing them just a basic level of appreciation that they don't find in the West. And guys lose their minds. Guys are willing to commit everything to this woman because she showed them a little taste of what they should be expecting. These guys need to kind of take their steps back and say, look, I like what I'm seeing, but I've only seen you for a week. I need to vet. I need to make sure you are who you say you are, and I'm not going to go crazy with you until I know this for sure. While I have seen bad relationships, bad situations in the Philippines, I also have to acknowledge that those are few and far between. Most of the situations that I'm seeing are good. And that's not just because the guys stayed in the Philippines with their women. I've met guys, I've seen, well, not met, met's too strong a word. I've talked to guys on TikTok, exchanged emails with guys who've met Filipinas and brought them back to the States. And they are still happily married. And by Western standards, the Filipinas who they brought back are 8s, 9s, and 10s. And these are regular Joes. But their Filipina is happy, their Filipina is appreciative, their Filipina is supportive, and is beaming as she talks about the life that they're going to build, the family that they're going to have. These are women who have husbands who they appreciate. They don't hate their men. They don't hate men. And that is a big difference in their culture versus ours. We've lost that somehow. Filipino wives' tales. Foreign men are so big that their girlfriends can barely walk after sex. Okay, I don't actually know the answer to that. I don't know. I don't have data on Filipinas and size. What I can talk about is just height. Filipinos are short. Filipinos are short. The average Filipino is about 5'4". The average American is more like 5'9". So yeah, you walk really tall in the Philippines. I'm 5'11". When I was in the Philippines, I was generally the tallest guy wherever I went. And you stand out. I know, Dan, you're like 6'3". So yeah, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb wherever you go. I was the tallest guy in the mall, in Ayala Mall. That was thousands of people. You might be the tallest guy in Cebu as far as you're concerned. I don't think I saw anybody who was 6'3" who was a Filipino. Now, you'll notice a lot of Koreans go to the Philippines to vacation, and the Koreans were a little bit taller, but the Filipinos themselves, no, they're short. When you get involved with any Pinay, demand a Sinamar. I think that's the marriage. Yeah, I agree with that. You want to make sure that you've got that the woman you're with is actually divorced. That's moving, that's moving fast. But admittedly, it's easy to move fast in the Philippines. You'll meet a woman who will meet you at the airport and stay in lockstep with you the whole time you're in the Philippines. Where you go, she follows. Where you stay, she stays. She is your support network the whole time you're there. And that can start to mess with you. Having that level of support, that level of appreciation, yeah, when you're not used to that, that can show up really well. But you've got to be able to step back and say, This is unusual in the West, but it's not unusual in the Philippines. So I can't just assume that I found the only woman who actually knows how to be appreciative. This is their culture. Vet carefully, choose carefully. But if you find what you're looking for, well, appreciate what you have because you don't want to lose it. I am knocking me. I don't want to be used, abused, and fooled. Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. But again, you got to get there. Get there and look around. Look at the videos that guys are posting about the experiences they're having in the Philippines. There are tons of guys who are talking about how amazed they are by what they're finding when they get to the Philippines. Guys are going to the Philippines and they're finding what they want. So get over there and just take a look. Even if you've got your heart set on somebody specific, until you are actually in a committed relationship with someone who you've been talking to face, it doesn't hurt to just get over there and look and start to understand what's possible. Because you will be amazed by what you see. Parabiology commented with, yeah, there are good ones and bad ones, and a Acetamar is definitely necessary. Totally agree with you there. It really just boils down to, for me, the percentages. There are lots. If I were to throw a stick in the Philippines, I would expect that more often than not, I'm going to hit a good one, just at random. I throw a stick in the States, more often than not, I'm going to get a bad one. Bad one being, you're going to find someone who's not really interested in marriage, not interested in a serious relationship, wants to date around and have fun, doesn't really seem to care about marriage until they are dealing with their biological clock and it's about to expire and they want to have that one kid to check the box while they still can. It's just not like that in the Philippines. You marry women who give you what you want, not who give you what they've got left after they've had all their fun. There are a lot of single mothers in Cebu, so free love exists. Oh, look, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of single mothers in the Philippines. Part of what I found, part of the experience that I think has led to some of the attraction Filipinas have for Western men. Well, there have actually been video podcasts about this. Filipinas, I've seen, are attracted to Western men in part because when they see Western guys, older guys, foreign, they say, that's stability. This isn't a guy who's just looking to have fun, who's going to get me pregnant and is going to skip out. And I've got to say, when I talk to older guys who are talking about the Philippines, if these guys are looking to have kids, these guys are not looking to skip out on their women. The thought of having a woman who they can have a family with is appealing to them. That's part of why they want to go, is because they want families, but they want to have women who they feel like they can build families with and who are going to be loyal. So yes, there's a lot of women, they're 18, they've got their first boyfriend, they get pumped and dumped, and before you know it, they've got a kid that they weren't planning on and they're stuck. And in the Philippines, that's difficult because a woman with a kid over there is going to have a much harder time finding a man who's Filipino than women are who have kids over here. I know, Dan, we were talking about this offline, but it's interesting if you look at the cultures because in the States, it's kind of normal to date single mothers. People don't think about it. Guy dates a single mother and it's like, that's our culture. But age gap dating over here is weird. So single mothers, common. Age gap dating, weird. Philippines, it's the opposite. Guy dating a single mother, now that's weird. The attitude is, why would you waste your time with a single mother over there? Age gap dating, more common. So it's a flip. For people who want to judge the culture, it's like, you know what? They've got their nuances, we've got our nuances. I'm not going to put my moral code on them, just the same way I don't expect them to put their moral code on me. What I will say is, when I look at women who have kids, they are way more open to who they date than women who don't, because they know the situation they're in. So if you wanted to date a woman who was a 10, if you don't care about kids, yeah, that's much easier to find because they have kids. They're not looking for tons and tons of additionals beyond someone who can provide, stability and commitment. So something to think about. Banana. Let me catch up. What do I think about a long distance relationship with many emails exchanged? I thought it was great. Today, I'm not so sure. See, for me, it's this. Until I meet them face to face, I don't consider it a relationship. I have no problem maintaining an open line of communication. Sure. I'll send emails, I'll WhatsApp, I'll do all of that. But until we've actually sat down in a room together and been able to talk in person, nope. That's just not a commitment to me. For me. Now, other people do different things, but for me, we got to talk. I've got to know who you are, and I've got to be able to say that, yes, our hands touched. We kissed. We're not just a virtual relationship, because there's always going to be that question. Like, do I really know that I'm the one? Go online. You can find, let's be honest here. You can find plenty of women online who will be wonderful virtual girlfriends. And what you may not realize is they're wonderful virtual girlfriends to you, and they're wonderful virtual girlfriends to 15 other guys, because they're just trying to extract as much money as they can. You got to sit down and you got to spend the time with them to be sure. So that's my take. Meet the family, date for at least a month, get to know her friends, and find someone who will rat her out after you leave. Yeah. So when I was in the Philippines, the woman who I met, she didn't want me to meet her family up front, but I understood it because she wasn't sure whether or not I was serious. So her attitude was, I want to meet this guy and I want to go out with him and I want to see if there's something here. Because if there's not, then I don't want him to meet my family. It's too complicated. If there is, then we can meet the family. Now, it didn't work out, but I understood her thinking. She wanted to make sure that I was legit before she took that extra step. And I've talked to other Filipinas. I've also heard them in some live streams, and they've had similar comments. Now, some will say they want you to meet their family right off and get their approval. But I've seen more than a few Pinays say they want to know that you're really interested in them before they introduce you to their family. Because if you just pump and dump them, then that would be very embarrassing. Let me see. Hit any Pinay live stream and ask them about banana envy. Yeah. Dano, the tall gray ape. Yeah, let me see. Gene, a guy can go to jail if her husband learns that you're sleeping with his wife. Now, see, I don't know the ins and outs of that. I wouldn't doubt that. I've never really explored what happens if I'm dating a woman who's married, because I wouldn't do. If she's married, then I'm not going to deal with her. If she lies to me, which is possible, okay, I could, find out that I'm messing around with a married woman and didn't realize it. But ultimately, that's not a situation I'm going to stay in. I've seen guys who, they're having sex with some woman who's blowing their mind, and they find out that she's married, and, they're separated because you can't get divorced. And they bring the woman to the States because you can bring her to the States and then get a divorce that is recognized in the States. And that opens you up to a remarriage. That's way more of a headache than I want to deal with. If a woman lies to me about being married, then I'm done. If lying is something I just won't tolerate. So if I find out she lied about anything, I'm done. You got a kid who you weren't honest about. You got a spouse who you weren't honest about. You got family commitments you weren't honest about. I'm just done. My attitude is, if leopards don't change their spots. So if you lie to me to get what you want, I'm assuming that that's going to be status quo for you moving forward. When you need something and you're worried about whether or not I'll give it to you, you'll just lie to try to get it. So I go for the honest approach, but to each his own. Dano, I'm only interested in one Pinay. So if that doesn't work out, I've got the number for a tourist business. Let me tell you, if that doesn't work out, you don't need the number for a tourist business. All you've got to do is get to Cebu. I can tell you right now, Cebu 2024 is probably going to be in June. So if you're interested in getting to Cebu and just seeing it, if anybody's interested, this is to anybody who's watching now, to anybody who watches later. Never been to Cebu, you want to go, you want to figure out, kind of how to make Cebu work. You don't want to necessarily be over there all by yourself. I'm probably going to go in June. So hit me up. I can give you an itinerary to help you understand kind of what I'm going to do. You can match parts of it. You can break off for parts of it because you may want to do things that I don't want to do and vice versa. But yeah, I want guys to get over there. I want them to see what it's like because once you see it, I'm set. I used an analogy before. If you've never tasted chocolate, you don't know what you're missing. And it's very hard to put into words just how wonderful it is. I can paint a picture for you that helps you to understand that it's good, but it doesn't really help you fully appreciate what experiencing it is like. And that's the same thing that I saw in the Philippines. It's like there's a friendliness that I just didn't expect to see. There's like this general level of happiness and this relaxation in people that I didn't expect to see. You walk around and you hardly ever see other Westerners because there just aren't that many. But all of the Westerners you see have beautiful young women with them. You take it for granted that Westerners are going to have beautiful young women with them because all of the ones that you see have them. Women are friendly with you and flirty with you. Women who are nines, who normally would have the stuck-up attitude in the West, they're friendly and flirty with you over there. And your whole mindset towards life changes because of what you're seeing on a regular basis. But you kind of got to get there to really see it, to really appreciate it. The percent of good ones is a lot better than in the U.S. Parabiology. Absolutely right. I did the numbers on it. It's another video. The Philippines has a smaller population, a significantly smaller population than the United States. But if you run the numbers and you're looking for a wife, there are more wives in the Philippines than there are in the States, in spite of the population. Because most of the women in the Philippines actually want to be wives, whereas only a subset of the women in the States want to be wives. It's night and day, the opportunity that's available there versus the opportunity that's available here. So I completely agree with you on that, Para. And all of the women in Michigan have they can barely, yeah, oh man, okay. We're going to get into these numbers because a lot of the stuff you're talking about is going to be in these numbers that I know I haven't gotten to, but it's going to be fun. But kind of to Para's point, parabiology wants a family. Steve, I encourage you, if you haven't seen it, take a look at, I did a short on parabiology and the beautiful young Filipina he had. Para was in the Philippines. Para was in Manila, just outside of Manila. Parabiology found a beautiful young Filipina. He's happy. She's going through the process of coming to the States to find him. That man has found himself a wife. That man has found what a lot of guys are looking for because he went over there and he experienced, the Philippines culture. He and I are going to do an interview, so I know he's traveled around the Philippines. He's traveled around the world. His conclusion, the wives are in the Philippines. And he went and found one. He found a beauty. And that guy is well on his way to getting exactly the kind of life he wants. And for everybody who's listening, that could be you. You could be a guy like Parabiology who goes to the Philippines, finds a beautiful wife, hasn't been the party girl, she's a good girl, and she's actually interested in being married, and you can have a life with someone like that. So why won't you do it? Um, Dano, my long distance relationship Pine is a single mother and she has ghosted me. Poof. Went the went to the poof went poof went to trust. I get you. Yeah, man. I mean, don't overcommit to that one. There are Filipinas. There are Filipinas who will be kind and loyal. And if you don't care about kids, okay. If you don't want kids, okay. Get over there. Get over to the Philippines. And in 2 days, this is what I want you to do in the Philippines in your first 2 days. I want you to go to Ayala Mall. I want you to shop around. Shop for some shoes. You're not going to find any because you got big feet like me, but shop for some shoes. That'll give you a reason to talk to people. Go to the food court. Go to Sugbo Mercado, which is this outdoor eating area. Go there at night. Get yourself something to eat. Get yourself a beer. Sit down at a table and listen to the karaoke music. That's all your mission is for 2 days. And go to SM City Mall and stop at Jollibee's to get their spaghetti with sweet spaghetti sauce. In those 2 days, I want you to understand that women are going to look at you. They're going to look at you and they're going to be friendly. They're not necessarily going to initiate a conversation with you, but they're going to make it very clear that you can initiate a conversation with them. They'll smile at you. They'll walk past you. They will make an effort to let you know that they're interested. All you've really got to do is say hi. Ask them where the food court is. Ask them if they know a shop that can help you find shoes for your big feet. They might start laughing. Next thing you know, you're in a conversation with a Pine who's not wired to be a party girl. You might find exactly what you're looking for in your first 2 days in the Philippines. But if you do, vet carefully, because when they start treating you better than the women in the States do, it's going to be confusing. It'll be tempting to fall in love with the first Filipina you meet. So be careful about that. You still need to vet. But it's so much better to be in that situation than to be over here dealing with women who all treat you like, you were their second choice and they had to settle for you because they couldn't get the guy they wanted. Who wants that when the Philippines is available? Pumped and dumped. Ha. Dan, I'll like and subscribe. I appreciate that. Parabiology, never date single mothers. It's like playing another man's saved video game. Now, see, I agree with you there. I'm not dating a single mother. I'm not wasting my time with something like that. But I understand that some people are in different places. If a guy doesn't want kids, doesn't want more kids, and he's saying, I'll date a single mother because she already has a kid, so I don't have to worry about adding to her family or giving her a kid that she's never had. I understand those guys. I'm not one of them. I'm not going to do that. I'm simple. If I get a Filipina, she's going to be like 28 years old, never had any kids. It's like, you know what? Sure, we'll crank out a couple of kids because I know you want them. I'm fine with that. And that also helps me to understand that she's going to be loyal, because if she's got my kids and she's my wife and it's my family, I'm not worried about her running around and playing the field. If she doesn't have any kids, well, then that's a question. That's more of a question. Not that I'm worried as much about that with the Filipinas, but I recognize that could be a challenge. My plan was to meet her, get her drunk, and get her to agree to marry me. But I can't even send her a mail now. I'm extremely picky. Be picky. But get over there and take a look at what's available and then decide who you want to be picky about. Until you meet the family, you don't know the PNA at all. I agree with that. Also, never get serious about a woman with more than 2 previous partners. 3 strikes and she's out. We're going to talk about some numbers, Para. We're going to talk about some. Now, I agree with you. The more partners, the worse. But I'll actually share this because it's going to be something we get into later. There are these 2 divorce lawyers who did this analysis. they got, these are number junkies. They crunched all sorts of numbers. And they were looking at things that drive divorce. And the magic number for them was 6. I mean, they literally did the analysis. If a woman has had 6 or more partners, the likelihood that she gets divorced gets jacked up. There are a number of things that drive divorce, but it was funny that they were able to get to a specific number and say 6 partners, that's it. Your divorce rate just jumped up exponentially. I did a video and I was trying to be humorous with it where I said, basically look for a 26-year-old conservative Asian who grew up with her biological parents in Iowa. Now, that does kind of speak to a lot of what they found in the numbers. But yeah, there's a lot more in there. 6 is death. So 6 or more, run for the hill. Run for the hills. Likelihood that marriage is going to last goes way down. I've had more than 6 lovers, so I'll not be a hypocrite. It will sound misogynist of me to say this, but it's different. Men and women are different on that. For women, the number of lovers they have has more of a detrimental impact on their ability to have a loyal relationship with someone than it does for men. I mean, big step back. Divorce rate's like 50%. Most of the time, it's women who are filing for these divorces. Now, women and men cheat at about the same rate. There's really not much of a skew one way or the other. But women divorce you for cheating far more than men divorce their wives for cheating. Man has a wife who cheats. More often than I was surprised by how often. They try to make things work. They try to figure it out. Cheat on a woman, she's done. So it's interesting to understand that sexual partners, promiscuity, no surprise, the more promiscuous you are, the less special sex is, the less of a bond it creates, the less likely you are to stick around. You just, you've got too many past experiences that a guy's competing with. And I'm sure most guys would like to feel like they're capable men, but are you the best guy out of 50? Well, how many partners has she had? At some point, she's simply had so many partners that you can't expect to be the best. Definitely not at everything. And that has a detrimental impact on your ability to have a long, meaningful, lasting relationship with a woman. So be careful with that. A lot of PNAs hide the fact they're married, so buyer beware. A lot is tricky. They definitely hide the fact. I say there are a lot of single PNAs. There are a lot of PNAs never been married. And I think that you can find them, but it's going to be easier to find them when you're there than if you're trying to go through dating sites or dating agencies while you're here. Tourist business employs a lot of hot PNAs. You can go to the mall to find a lot of hot PNAs. Most beautiful PNA I saw when I was there worked in the mall, in Ayala Mall, in the Foot Locker. And she was a knockout. Couldn't believe it. Cebu is really dirty and lots of trash, but lots of beautiful women too. If I was just on vacation, not trying to get a girl, I wouldn't really want to go there. Now, you've been to Manila, Para, so I appreciate you got experiences that I don't have. I agree. Cebu is, really dirty. Parts of Cebu are really dirty. When I was around Ayala Mall, I felt like the Ayala Mall area was clean. I think that's part of what it's known for, is its cleanliness. It's well lit. That whole area was really nice. Get a little bit out and away from Ayala Mall, and yeah, it starts to get a little bit dirtier. But to your point, there are lots of beautiful women in Cebu. And I was there I was there with a woman, but I was appreciating all the beautiful women I was seeing. So I can't say that I won't check out other places. I didn't really spend any time in Manila. This year, I will probably spend some time in Manila on my trip. But no, Cebu was amazing in terms of the people watching, the adventures, And yeah, I don't think a guy is going to go to Cebu and not find a woman he's attracted to, unless he just doesn't like the Asian physique to begin with. In which case, why are you there? If I ever move to the Philippines, I'll buy a big trampoline and run a vlog called Filipinas. Okay, see, I got distracted by the idea. Filipinas bouncing on trampolines. I'll make a fortune. You don't have to move to the Philippines for that. There have actually been guys who've done shows like that. And I mean, let's face it, there's a very primitive part of us as men that just likes to look at that. So I get it. The plan I had with my Pinay, who was to meet her at a dating site office in Cebu. That's the only thing she asked from me. I understand how you went through that. We'll come back to that at a point. Because for me, I just won't go to the offices. I can just walk through the mall and I can find someone. I'll look for it. The parashort later. I don't know how I missed it. Yeah, you'll take a look. You will be impressed. I keep them classy. I'm not here trying to sell promiscuity. I'm here to help guys understand that there are relationships. And this is to anybody who wants to send me pics. Send me pics, but I'm only going to post the classy pics. I want people to understand the life that you're creating. And this isn't to say that Para didn't send me classy pics, because he did, but it's more just to point out that if guys are going to look at guys and the relationships they're having, what you're going to see are couples who are enjoying each other's company, because that's the kind of stuff that I do. Travel to the grocery store. Yeah, you can just travel to the grocery store. If I went to the Philippines, I would search for a tall. Okay, tall depends on. Let me say this: the average Pinay is like 4'11". If a Pinay is over like 5'3", I'm gonna be suspicious about whether that's a woman or a lady boy. They're just not tall. The lady boys are tall. That's kind of the giveaway. You see someone walking around. My first couple of days there, I was with Lynn, and like some people would stand out. I thought, why are they so dressed up? And that was usually the thing with the lady boys. They were taller, and they were dressed a little bit more flashy, because it caught me. Like, why are they dressed up? Where are they going? And she would say, "Oh, those are lady boys." Really? Wow, you can't tell. There are lots of them over there. And you, at first glance, you can't tell. I mean, you got to look at the Adam's apple, and that's not always a giveaway. The big hands, not always a giveaway. But what I have found is, if they're over about 5'3", I'm suspicious. Like, we got to figure something out, because like a Filipino and a Filipina could both have that kind of that curvature, and could both wear those clothes. And if I'm not sure, then I'm not touching it. Not knocking people for their lifestyles, but that's not my style. I'm straight. That's my thing. That's who I'm focused on. Let me see. My perfect Pinay would be 5'6". 5'6". Yeah. If you can find one, that is a little harder. But I hear you. I like tall, but I just know in the Philippines that's not easy. Actually, let me do. Okay, so we got some great comments coming in through here, but I want to share something that we've got, and then we're going to come back to the comments. So let me get to. All right, let me stop sharing for a second. I got to switch over. I got something that I want us to talk about today, and I think you're going to enjoy this, because this paints a picture of one of the problems in the West. Let me see. Yeah, I want this. Okay. I'm not going to go through all of this, but here's what I want you to understand. This is a study that was published by Forbes. Forbes is reputable. I don't have all of they didn't post all of their methodology, but the reason I'm comfortable using it is because it was published by Forbes. Some people can publish studies and you'll question them because, like, if this was Glamour magazine or anything like that, I wouldn't trust the numbers because I don't trust them to be rigorous. Forbes, I kind of know how they do their research. They focus on the credibility of their data. 2023 report. Reason I'm going here is because I want to start with a question. Forbes talked to people about divorce. They did this huge study with divorcees to figure out, well, why'd you get married? Kind of what were the problems? What led to the divorce? What could have been done? They did this nice little evaluation. Question for you. If you had a guess, what's the number one reason why they got married? Why these couples who ended up divorced, what was the number one reason why they got married? I'm just curious to know what people would guess. And you don't need to type it in, but here's what I'll say. If you guessed love, you are dead wrong. Number one reason why these couples got divorced was not love. Not at all. Nope. These are the divorcees. The biggest factors for getting married. Number one, I don't know if that's clear to everybody. If that's fuzzy, let me know. I'll make it a little bigger. Make that a little bigger. Number one, why'd you get married? Financial security. Okay, I see that you sent a picture. I will take a look at that in just a minute, Dano. Come in here. The number one reason why these couples got married is financial security. I wouldn't expect that. I would have expected something about companionship, love, having kids, all things that are on this list, none of which are first. Not one of those things is number one. Now, here's the thing, because there are a couple of things going on with this. And I will say, I reached out to them. I found this like a week ago, and I reached out to them back then because there were some things that I wanted to know about the study. They didn't get back to me, and I'm imagining they get 1,000 requests a day, so they may never get back to me. But I can still make inferences based on what I know in this data and what I know about real life. 42% of people said they got married for financial security. Next highest was companionship at 39%. Well, see, that 42%, that's bad, but that's misleading. Because, see, that 42% is an average. That means when they took men's answers and they took women's answers, they added them up and divided by 2, then that was what they got, 42. What I want to know, and what I was asking them about, was what's the breakout of the men and the women? Because let's face it, if women were 62% there and men were 22% there, that would still average out to 42. And it is a very different situation. It's bad enough that it's 42% and it's number one. But if for women that's like 62, or for women that's 72, well, what does that tell you? In the immortal words of Tina Turner, what's love got to do with it? In this case, not a doggone thing. Now, something else to consider about this. This wasn't what you would call it a mutually selective study. I mean, you could answer multiple things. And I know that just by looking at the numbers. They add up to more than 100%. That means 42% of people decided to check this. They consciously said financial security is what I got married for. More people said it was financial security than said it was companionship, than said it was love, than said it was, kind of formalizing this commitment, starting a family, etc. Now, I'll admit that medical insurance, I would have lumped that into financial security. I don't know why they didn't. Another one of the questions I would want to ask them. But here's the thing I want to know, because this is an average. And I suspect that the woman's side of this is much higher than the men's. Why do I say that? Well, let's start with something simple. If I think about all of the guys I know who are married, all of the men who I know, almost none of them got married for financial security. Not a there's one guy who may have, maybe, I don't know, but he's the only one who may have. And he was a guy who was this. He used to play basketball in high school. He was tall, but he didn't work out. So in high school, he was dominant. But when he got to college, he was tall and skinny. He didn't fare so well. He was trying to figure out how to get a European basketball career going. But again, he was tall and skinny, and he didn't really put in time in the weight room. So he didn't have a successful career. But he met a woman who had a great horizon for her career, and that's who he married. She wasn't the prettiest woman he'd ever dated. I grew up with this kid. I knew the kinds of women he dated. When you're the tall basketball player, you date a lot of beauties. She was very normal, but she was very smart, and she was very driven. And that's who he married. He might have gotten married for financial security. Of all the men I know who are married, that is the only one. And let's think about something. When you look at guys and you look at the guys who are looking to get married, what you generally find is the more money a guy makes, the less he cares about how much money his woman has. It's almost like guys who are more successful are even less likely to get married because they're looking for financial security. We don't get married to receive financial security. We're getting married knowing that we can provide financial security. So on the men's side, financial security doesn't make a lot of sense because it flies contrary to the way we approach relationships. Now think about the woman's side of this equation. And this is the part that gets so funny. If you look at women who are on dating shows, who are on dating apps, if you look at women who are out there shooting their shot, what's the one thing that they always have an answer to? How much money does this guy need to make? I've seen women come out on dating shows and they don't know how many kids a guy can have before it's a problem. They don't know how many baby mamas a guy can have before it's a problem. They don't seem to have thoughts about his religion, thoughts about his sexual history, thoughts about his worldview. They don't have thoughts about a whole lot of that. But they do know how much money they need him to make. They need a six-figure man. They need a $500,000 man. They need a man who makes enough money to pay his bills and support himself and take her out on trips and dinners. They can always articulate how much money a guy needs to make, regardless of anything else that comes up. Now, they'll probably say that he shouldn't be a smoker. They'll probably say that he should be taller than them. But those generally seem to be somewhat negotiable. The only thing that's not negotiable? Financial security. And that is why I want to know what the real numbers are here. Because I could easily see the women's numbers being 62 and the men's numbers being 22, which tells us what? You're a wallet, fellas. What's love got to do with it? Not a doggone thing. They're with you for the security, and if you're not providing that, you're not worth it to them. These are the divorcees, and this is what they said they got married for. The money. That's not the only thing I want to talk about, though. We're going to skip past this one for a second because I don't want to go through them all. And I want to go to this because essentially, if you look at some of those other charts, they get into some things that I think are a little messy. If you look at the number one reason why people get divorced, it's irreconcilable differences, which is nonsense. All that means is you didn't feel like getting into the actual details of why you're getting a divorce. So you put irreconcilable differences because it's easy, it's no fault, and you can get out of this thing more quickly. Those other charts were kind of dancing around that. Not that useful. You need to get into what the differences are. Now remember, number one reason why they said they got married was money. What's the most common type of conflict among divorced couples? So when we're talking about these irreconcilable differences, these arguments that can't seem to get past, what are we arguing about? Well, guess what? It's money. Career choices, number one. Number one is career choices. Now, that's what it says. But what that means is money. I mean, let's face it. If you're a consultant when you marry someone and you decide to become a dentist, you've made a new career choice. That's not going to be a problem. The problem is, are you making the same amount of money or not? What have we seen in some of the other data that's been presented? Q. Rollo Tomasi and a lot of his talking points. If a woman has an advancement in her career and she surpasses her man, that's a problem. He's not working hard enough. He's not ambitious enough. He's not making enough money. Guy has a setback in his career, that's a problem. He's not making enough money. People get married, they have problems because of money. Now, there was this, I'm going to get back to the chat, so I'll come back in a minute because I want to make sure we get through this little piece first. There's this question that I used to see marriage counselors lead off with, and I didn't understand it when I first heard it. Man and a woman come in for sex counseling, or for marriage counseling, and the counselor will lead off the conversation with, how's the sex? When I first heard that, I misunderstood it. I thought that they were using that question to break down barriers. If I can get this couple to start off by talking about sex, I can get them to start talking about anything. So let's really start, hitting the ground running and move to the problem as quickly as we can. That's what I thought the question was at first, but I've changed my tune because I've come to realize that I think that it's far simpler than that. I think that what happens in marriage counseling is this. Couple sits down and the counselor says, well, is the sex a problem? Because if there's a problem with the sex, then I know why this man's upset. If this man is happy with the sex, then we have a whole different set of issues to deal with. So a woman can scream about how she's not getting all of her needs met till the cows come home. What the counselor is fundamentally needing to understand is this man sexually satisfied? If he's happy with the sex, he's probably going to do the stuff you want. If he's not happy with the sex, he's not going to do the things you want because he finds you annoying. So if I solve the sex problem, all of the other problems can kind of disappear. These sexless marriages, they have ripple effects. You don't care about your wife's complaining when you're not getting the sex you want. For guys, the fundamental problem is generally sex. For women, the fundamental problem is generally money. Now, there is another piece that I want to get to for this, and then we can come back to our conversation. But it is funny to look at this. Less than 5% of divorcees say their marriage couldn't be saved. So 95% of the time when they get divorced, could have fixed it. What are we saying the big problem is? Sex. Is money. Money. But here's this thing that's the other piece that I really want to focus on, which is what do they believe could have saved their marriage? Remember, 95% of them are saying that their marriage could have been fixed. 95%. So, what were the problems that could have saved it? Number one, a better understanding of the commitment of marriage prior to marrying. I didn't know that this marriage was going to be work. I didn't really understand what a marriage requires. I could have spent more time understanding that before I got married. Number two, a better understanding of the values and morals of my partner prior to marrying. Why do divorces happen? Because people enter it just thinking about what they can get and they don't think about what the marriage is actually going to require. Let's line all of those data points up. You meet a woman, she wants financial security out of you. And that's the only thing she's thinking about. Your list of requirements for her, what a marriage entails, not looking at any of that. It's strictly, I'm in this to make a better lifestyle for myself. And when it gets hard, they quit. 95% of the time they could fix the relationship, they just don't want to. Because what was going on? I didn't think about the work that a marriage requires. I didn't think about what my partner was looking for from me. I mean, if I'm going to roll this up, if you meet a woman in the States and you've got a list of requirements, you've got a list of things that you want from her, and she's not really interested in talking about your list, run for the hills. You're begging for a failed marriage. You ask a woman what she brings to the table and she says she is the table. In other words, she doesn't care about actually meeting your needs. This is all about her. Run for the hills. You're begging for a failed marriage. If you are a financial improvement to her and she doesn't seem to care about anything else, she doesn't seem to think about anything else, you're looking at a potential ex-wife. That's not a wife. That's a potential ex-wife. She needs to invest the time in vetting. I have no issue with women bringing a list of their requirements, but I have a huge issue with them not being able to listen to and appreciate our list of requirements. Because that's an indication that I'm looking at a potential ex-wife. And who the hell wants that? This was one of the better studies I've seen published because it really just got into the nuts and bolts of what's going on in the West. Now, I think in the Philippines, the same basic things exist. Women want financial security. But financial security looks way different over there. And to give an example, there's a video that was posted recently. Para comes in and out sometimes. So sometimes he'll bounce out and then he'll come back. But the one thing I will say is, I got to remember where I was. Well, we'll come back to it. One of the things I'll do is I want to catch up on these chats. I'll have to marry a Pinay who is, let me see, let me make sure. That's not where I came from. Let me back up a little bit more. Nope, got to back up just a bit. Yeah, we talked about the tall Pinay, 5'6". Dana knows how to keep it in his pants. It'll take a very special woman to cut me down to size. A single mother will always be more earnest about being in a long-term relationship like marriage. I agree with you there. I think if you get, especially in the Philippines, if you get a single mother, I don't think she's going to mess around. She's going to look at her situation and she is going to appreciate a man who's interested in her because she knows that a lot of the guys in the Philippines aren't. So I do agree that that's probably a safer bet if you're okay with a woman who has kids. I've had many previous partners. It's different for men and women. It's not hypocritical. Women lose pair bonding ability. Yeah, women lose their pair bonding ability much earlier than men. That's just the numbers. 6 partners. I don't know how they got to it, but after 6 partners or more, the likelihood that they end up divorcing you goes way up. I trust those 2 lawyers. They did an analysis of all. Their whole point with the research was to analyze all of the different things that influence divorce. Remember when I thought I found my Sarah? Talk about crash and burn. Yeah, now a lot of people don't know what we're talking about there, Dan, because they didn't see the backstory we had. I'll leave it to you to get into more of that if you want to. But yeah, Dan is a man on a mission. He has a woman who he likes, and he is going to put in the work. And I find it fascinating that you've got guys like Dan, good, solid guys who are looking for loyal women for relationships. And Dan is looking halfway around the world. Because in the West, nope, treat you like trash. Misogynistic. People throw misogynistic around a little bit too liberally. It just means they're not getting what they want. Look into Oxycontin and pair bonding. Now, I see kind of the connection you're doing there, the whole idea of sex and the chemical impact it can have on the brain, that pleasure center. And sure, you sleep with too many people and sex just isn't special anymore. I don't know why people struggle to understand that. The more partners you have, the less special each new partner is. And that impacts women much more quickly than it impacts men. Like most guys, all I looked at was her. Ha! Yep, I get that. To marry a Pinay who is not as tricky as me. I like to window shop. That's my interest in the tourist business. So when I was over there with Lynn, I will admit, I'm a one woman guy. I don't play the field. If I'm with a woman, I'm with her. I'm not going to cheat. That doesn't mean I'm dead. I mean, I can still see. And there were plenty of gorgeous women who were looking around. And the times that I wasn't with Lynn, I noticed that they were a lot more interested in me. And I thought, if I was here by myself, it would not take very long or much effort for me to find someone. You just need to know where to go. My LDR Pinay complained about her Ha! She's got a flat booty, huh? I told her they were fine, but if we get married, I would buy her. Oh, no. Oh, not her butt. Okay. She's flat chested. I get it. I would buy her bigger bras. In fact, I told her we have to buy 2 and get 1 free. Nice. Get it on sale. 411 is a beer stand, at the very least. Para got a laugh out of that. I think you guys are going to get along. Para's got the most travel experience in the group of people who joined the live session. He's been around the Philippines extensively, and he's traveled around the world. So when Para told me that he landed on the Philippines after visiting lots of places and testing them, that gave me a lot more confidence. I'd already figured out that the Philippines was the best, but I hadn't actually pressure tested that versus some of the other places that he has. So yeah, it was nice to get that reassurance. When my Pinay asked me what I do with the third, I told her not to worry. It would not be wasted, that third bra. Yeah. Okay, I know you sent me a picture to share. Let me go to that for a second. I want to see what we've got. And yes, I understand why you saw Paris' picture and just got focused on his beauty. I got to tell you. Wait, we got a message on this one. What's this message? Okay, hang on a second. I got to blow this up. I want to see what she said. Hope to see you soon. Take care. When did you get this picture? I'm gonna pull this up. But I do want to know. Let me see. I'm gonna blow it up. I'm gonna do one of these numbers. Nah, let's do it more like that. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna pull up. I like prayer. Don't necessarily agree with him. I know how to make a marriage work. Oh yeah, I don't. There are lots of different guys with lots of different approaches. I don't fault anybody for how they choose to approach dating. I don't want a woman who's got kids, but I don't fault a guy who does. We're all in different life stages and we've got different interests. Para's story. I'll let Para tell his story when he gets a chance. We've got the interview that we're trying to coordinate. I think that when you hear his story, you'll start to understand some of what drives him. I mean, I get it. I've talked to him. I know, what I will say is, Para's divorced. His divorce was a little bit rough, and I can totally appreciate why he's at a point where he is, where he wants a family and he wants a woman who he knows he can trust. But for everyone who's in the audience, let me blow this up a bit. Actually, let me do one of these numbers. Let me see. What if I do? Okay, StreamYard changed their setup. So I can't do exactly what I want. This is Sarah. This is Dano's Pine. They met through a service. They've exchanged a lot of emails. Dano wants to go to the Philippines because he wants to meet her face to face, and I don't blame him. She's a really beautiful woman. And if you listen to the interview with Dan, you'll know that, Dan found this woman, saw her on a site. Cupid's arrow struck him. He started to pursue, and one thing led to another, and they were in an email exchange. She's got a kid. She's had some family issues that she's dealing with that pulled her away from the dating service that she was in. But Dan is hoping to get to the Philippines to meet her. And the one thing I do want to say is, when you look at Dan and when you look at the level of commitment that he has to Sarah, he hasn't met her in person yet. But Dan demonstrates a level of commitment that you just don't really see in people anymore. Nowadays, you see guys like the guy I led with, who's at the bar, basically talking about trying to trick women into the pump and dump. Dan's not that guy. Dan is looking for a relationship. He's looking for a commitment. And he's actually gone, to the ends of the earth to really try to build something with Sarah. And it fascinates me that you got so many guys, good, solid guys like Dan, who are here in the States and who have to fly to the other end of the world to find wives, because you can't find wives here. Regular Joes are not going to find wives in the States. You're going to find potential ex-wives, but you're not going to find wives. So to everybody who might be listening later, I definitely encourage you to look at Dan's interview and listen to his story, because it's a prime example of why the Passport Bro movement is so important. That said, let me get back to, I got to catch back up to the chat. The way this is set up, I have to scroll around to figure out where we are. Let me see. I want to know Gene's electronics setup. 2 computers, 2 phones. You're multitasking, and I need to learn about that. Oh, you know what? I use 1 computer for this, but I got to tell you that over the last 2 years, I haven't worked in an office in years. I've worked from home. I have to do Zoom calls every single day. When you're doing Zoom calls every single day, you start picking up tricks. When I first started, I didn't know how to shift between all these windows and do all this stuff. But now with StreamYard, which makes it very easy to live stream onto YouTube, and my familiarity with Zoom, a lot of this is second nature. StreamYard is very easy to use. If you can see my screen, well, you can't see my screen. You can't see the version of my screen that I'm looking at. StreamYard makes it pretty easy to use and to get through a lot of screens and make it simple. If divorce in America did not include a monthly stipend for the lazy witches, it would go down fast. Honestly, I think the only thing, if anybody gets married in the West, I would say have a prenup. Prenups are definitely not ironclad. They get shot down every day, but having one is better than not having one. The big thing is you have to make sure there's not an incentive for getting divorced. No financial incentive, because what we've seen is, when you look at these divorced couples, the woman was marrying the guy for financial security. She was leaving the guy because she didn't feel like she had the financial security she was looking for. She didn't need him anymore, and she left. And 70, 80, 90% of the time, divorce is filed by the woman. It just depends on which cut of the data you want to look at as to how bad it is. But those are verifiable stats. Half the time there's a divorce, it's almost always the woman who's filing. And part of what we learned today is these are marriages that could be fixed. They just didn't want to. They're not going to put in the effort. I'll come back to that because there's one other aside as we were talking about couples counseling that I think is interesting. But American women are narcissistic gold diggers who think they know it all and demand to be worshipped and obeyed. Fork them. That is, you've got women who are average, but they think they're settling for men who are average because they've been able to sleep with men who are above average. And that throws it off. Fundamentally, the issue is women in the West aren't looking, they're not looking to be wives. They're looking for hookups. They're looking for fun. Marriage and all of that comes somewhere down the road. And you choose differently if you're looking for someone to have sex with than you do if you're looking for someone to build a life with. All I need from a woman is for her to get down on all four. Ha! Oh, man. Hey, we're going to keep it clean, Dano. But I hear what you're saying. Ask Apine and she will tell you that her man has to bring home 10,000 pesos a month. Gold digger. What's that? Like $1,000, $2,000. Let me see. Did I do my math right? Yeah, I think that's 2,000. So touching on that, there was this thing I started talking about at the beginning, Rue Beauty. Rue Beauty did a street interview with Filipinos to talk about what rich is in the Philippines. And I found it very interesting that she was talking about what it looks like to be rich. I'm going to switch. Well, we'll stay on. Actually, yeah, we'll do that for a second. When she talked to Filipinos about rich, so not scraping by, not middle class, not upper middle class, rich to Filipinos was basically $2,000 a month, ranged $2,000 to $3,000. If you're making $2,000 to $3,000 a month in the Philippines, you are rich. Now, there were a couple of people who said higher numbers. One was a doctor and one was in law school. They basically said you need to make like, what was that? About $4,000 a month, maybe $5,000 a month to be rich. But these were lawyers and doctors talking about what rich looks like. So rich in the Philippines is anywhere from $24,000 a year to like $60,000 a year. That's everybody seemed to consider rich to fall into that range. If you move to the Philippines and you're still working, I don't think you can get a job. I don't think you'll have any kind of job in the Philippines that pays less than $2,000 a month. The economics of it just doesn't match. So if you can work from the Philippines, you are more than likely making enough to be considered rich in the Philippines. Your wife hated putting so much time into your trade. You explained that it was nuts, and she agreed, but she wanted more time for just her. I think that's true love. Yeah. Does someone appreciate you, or does someone just look at you as a resource? One of the greatest tests that I've seen of late is the coffee date. Guys are taking women on first dates that are coffee dates, and I love it because women get ticked off and they don't want to go and they feel like it's cheap, and they're basically failing a very basic test, which is a guy looking and saying, I want to know if you're actually interested in me or if you're just looking to be entertained. A lot of the women can't see past the first date. They can't think about the fact that the first date being a coffee date is a springboard for a second date that's more meaningful if there's a connection. Now, if they didn't really like the guy in the first place, of course they don't want to go on the coffee date, and the guy dodged a bullet. If they couldn't see that the coffee date is a test, the guy still probably dodged a bullet, because if they can't see that, who knows what else that they can't see? That's pretty basic. My preferred marriage counselor was, yeah, toys are fun. If you and your woman are into that, I get it. Wifey never complained about your love life. You're always ready for action, not a minute man, not a jackhammer. Yep. Different, I hear you. Different strokes, different folks. I know women who've liked it rough. I know women who've liked it gentle. It just kind of depends on who you get. All relationships are daily efforts, work. I constantly dated my wife. I made her believe I wanted. Nice. And yes, again, I'm agreeing with all of your points. One of the things we found was recognizing that women file for divorce 70, 80, 90% of the time. One of the reasons why they're filing for divorce is because they didn't stop to consider what a marriage was going to entail. And once they realized it was work, they got ticked off because they didn't want to do the work. Going back to the story about the marriage counselor that I was alluding to, there are like 3 different marriage counselors who've got videos on YouTube. Some of them have gone viral, and it's funny because all 3 of them independently did these analyses of the couple counseling sessions that they've had over the course of their career. And I don't remember what triggered it, but something like there was some video and it triggered them all to kind of go back and take a look at their own cases and why couples counseling failed when it did. And they all came up with the same conclusion. When couples are going to counseling and they end up quitting the counseling entirely, just abruptly saying, I'm done, they said it was almost always the same thing. So they're going through counseling and they're talking about things that the relationship needs in order to be salvaged. And they'll point to the guy and they'll say, these are things that you need to do to salvage the relationships. And the guy would generally say, okay, I've got things I need to work on. But then they would point to the wife and they would say, these are things you need to do to make the relationship work. And the wives didn't want to do the work. The wives pushed back and fought and could not accept any accountability. The notion that they needed to do something better ticked them off. And in the overwhelming majority of the cases where counseling just was shut down, it was because the counselor told the wife, no, you've got things you need to fix too. And she didn't want to put in the effort. We look at the numbers on marriages and how salvageable they are. 95% of the time they said the marriage could be fixed. And the majority of the time, the reason they're leaving is because of money. They don't want to do the work. Like, he's not making enough money. He's not making as much money as I want. I don't see the financial security from him that I thought I was going to get. I don't feel like fixing this. I don't feel like waiting around. I'm out. And we know that usually their subsequent marriages, your second marriage is more likely to fail than the first. Your third marriage is more likely to fail than the second. So more often than not, they're going to go from one bad situation to a worse situation, to an even worse situation. But that is the path that they take. It's just how it is. No more stats, more about sex in the Philippines. I don't kiss and tell. What I will say is, you get to the like, no, I'm not gonna. I'm not going down that path. I think you'll be happy when you're there. And there, I did notice there's a Filipina who I'm just starting to explore. Not sure if I start following her or not. She posted a spicy video about Filipinas in the bedroom. I haven't looked at it yet, but I mean, the title alone made me think, huh, wonder what we're going to be talking about here. Yeah. Kids under the age of 10. Wait, kids under the age of 10 don't. Oh, okay. If she's got kids. Okay, I get that. Yeah, I mean, to each his own. I'm not I'm not doing that, but I don't fault any guy for finding know yourself, know what you want. And if kids don't matter to you, then okay, don't let that get in the way. My faux Sarah won't even message me. Okay, now your faux Sarah shouldn't be messaging you, but it's interesting that you're trying to pursue that. I'm curious to know more. True love makes sex better than special. Those gals at the tourist business are hot. Yeah, you just, oh man, look at video. There are guys who are just posting videos walking down the streets in the Philippines, and nines and tens are walking past them. Yeah, you just need to get out there. You would be amazed at what life is like over there. Flat chests, yes. She's not flat though. Yeah, we talked about you like Parrot. I don't necessarily agree with him. Yeah, you guys just have two very different stories. And when you hear his story, it'll be as clear to you as it is to me that you guys you're coming at it from different places. So it makes sense to hear both of your perspectives. 3 months ago, before her mother got sick, can I do a 3-person interview? Actually, I can. I wish I saw that. Yeah, I can set. Oh, wait. So if we're talking about a 3-person interview offline, sure, I can set that up. That's just a matter of, really the trick there is just coordinating so everybody's available at the same time. I'm assuming you're talking about one with Para, but I'll say I want to do the one-on-one with Para first because I want Para to be able to tell his story. After that, I think that if we're talking about with Para, then yeah, a conversation between an experienced passport bro and somebody who's considering becoming a passport bro, yeah, I can totally see the intrigue of something like that. Okay, she has the face of an angel. Yeah, let's face it, Dana, you got a beauty. Para's got a beauty. Most of the guys I see posting videos have got beauties. I just saw a video. 85-year-old man went to the Philippines and he was dancing around. I mean, the woman he was with, let's say she's 50. He's 85. She's 50. She's still a young woman to him. This guy was at a club. He was dancing around. He and her went to like 2 different locations. They were just having a good old time. The guy had a drink in his hand. I saw rejuvenation in him in the Philippines. And that is not an atypical story. I'm going to say most guys can get it, but they've got to get their passports and they've got to get on a plane. How do you read your mails while live streaming multiple windows? Actually, it pops. So you don't see the windows that I go to. You see the window, like I set up a window, and sometimes I forget this, but this window is going to stay here until I close it. So if I go click on some other stuff, you don't actually see that. So if I get emails, they'll pop up on like my email pane. It's like you got an email, and it just doesn't show up on this screen, but it shows up on my screen. Oh, I guess I should say I've got 2. I have 1 laptop, but I have my laptop, and then I have like a big monitor that I'm plugged into. So I do have 2 screens. I don't think about it that way, but yeah, I guess I've got 2 screens running. So I see stuff pop on one screen that you don't see pop on the other screen. Does StreamYard charge? Not the version I have. I only do it for free. Mine, I mean, truth be told, I use free StreamYard right now because I'm a micro streamer. I don't have a huge following. So I just do something and I try to keep it simple. There's another software. If I get big, if I ever get really big, um, there's a software that's supposed to make the editing a little bit easier, actually a lot easier. There's a lot more features. Free StreamYard is excellent for you when you're starting out. Not that hard to use, doesn't cost anything. It's what I'm on. It's a good starting point. But once you get big, you'll probably want to switch to something that's a little bit higher grade, that's got more features. However, there's a long way between getting started and needing to do anything that's advanced. Everything I own is in my daughter's name. Supposedly, not even the government can touch that pre-estate. I hear you there. I'm eventually going to do that with my kid. I mean, when she gets a little older, yeah, I don't want her to be hit with some huge tax burden when I'm dead and gone. I want it to be turnkey, so things will get bought in her name. I'll have money going into her accounts instead of mine, so she won't have to worry about that. I am definitely planning to leave this world with my kid in a much better place, because I'm gone. So, as she's going through that difficult day, it's like, look, kid, you got a big fat chunk of change coming in. So, brighten up and get on with your life. I was rich when my wife was alive. Today I'm just a guy with a few extra bucks. Rich is relative, but I will say that however much you've got goes a whole lot further in the Philippines than it does in the States. Wait, are you saying I should not try to bed my Sarah after our first date? I'm not saying that at all. Okay. See, Dan, I have to be careful with you, Dano. I'm not going to kiss and tell any of my stories. It is tempting. Dan's the kind of guy you got to watch it if you have a beer with him. You'll end up saying way more than you mean to. I sent you the close-up pic of Sarah with that sign. Nope. What you sent is fine. 9 out of the 10's world biggest problem stem from a... Interesting. Para just got back. I was talking. Para. Para, you were talking with your Filipina. Para. I got to talk to you, man. You've got a beautiful Filipina talking to you on the phone, and you're choosing to talk to some old humps like us. I don't know about that, buddy. I've seen you're a Filipina. I think you need to reconsider. But you know how often you two talk. And I understand women are women, and sometimes you got to get away and just hang with the boys. I like the looks of faux Sarah. She was probably a kid. Welcome back. Yeah, we are talking about you. Well, a little bit. Me, Para, and you. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's something, down the road, I think that would make sense. But first thing I want to do with Para is just get him. I want him to tell his story. Yeah. Thanks, Dano. No worries. No, I've got Cuba Zero in my heart. This is nothing I was looking for. Yeah. We're going to get Dano to the Philippines. We're going to get him there. Then he can look around. Once he's looked around, we can revisit this conversation. I just want to see where Dano is once he's been to the Philippines and he spent a week or two walking the Philippines and seeing what's available. And if we're lucky, Dano, I'm going to get you to go whale shark diving with me. You're going to dive in the ocean, swim with some 30-footers. I think you're underestimating how exciting that can be. I bought a camera for the desktop PC so I could do a live stream with it, but the lighting would stink. Yeah, I'm not a master of light. Look, I put a new light in today. I definitely need to get better at lighting. I need to get better at setup. I don't worry about my setup. I probably need to get a backdrop and all that stuff. I just don't. Right now, I'm having fun doing my live stream, talking to guys about going to the Philippines to find wives. Is that your girl on stream? Yep, that is his Sarah. StreamYard keeps trying to sell itself to you. It will, but I don't spend a dime on StreamYard. And if you're just starting out, I don't really see the point. If you're looking at my video, it's got that powered by StreamYard in the upper right-hand corner, but so what? That's not a problem to me. If I start making more professional productions, maybe I'll care about that. I think if you're paying, you can take that off. It's just not that big a deal right now. After 4 months, Sarah sent me that picture. It says, "Hi, my love, Dano." Oh, wait, the screen started moving. "Hope to see you soon. Ari, her daughter, and me is waiting for you." After 4 months, she sent you that. How long ago was that when you got that picture? Came back after she got off. Okay. Thank you, Para. But since her mother got very sick, she's ghosted me. Long story. Yeah, I don't think we got into all of part of Dan's story was posted. Then there's part of it that we had that was kind of an after hours conversation. So I'll leave it to him to share whatever he wants to there. Your Pinay got off. I'm not. Okay. Yeah. I knew you guys would get along. Dano the drunkard heads to the Philippines. What do we know about Mindanao? I don't know if Para's been to Mindanao. I looked like Lurch in our interview. Needed another light. Nah, you were fine, buddy. Free StreamYard. Got it. Sorry to hear she ghosted you. Yes, back. Okay, back in November. End of October, beginning of November. Wait, end of October. So how long? Okay, so that was shortly before our interview, if I'm remembering right. Haven't been to Mindanao yet. Okay. So to anybody who's listening, if you've been to Mindanao, you need to join the live. We need somebody who's been to Mindanao to help round out what we've got. That's the last location I have for Sarah. She's living on a farm there. Mindanao's on my list. It's not as high as Manila, but honestly, I had so much fun in Cebu that I can't wait to get back. Cebu blew my socks off, and I didn't see all of Cebu. I could do lots of other parts of the Philippines, but I got to tell you, there were so many beautiful women in Cebu that I didn't know what to do with myself. Just walking around every day, I thought, I cannot believe there are all these beautiful women here, and they're looking for husbands. And if you're a foreigner, you are a celebrity. They are excited to see you. They're competing for you. I mean, I get it. If a guy's an NBA player in the States, he's got his pick. Women from far and wide are going to be interested in him because he's tall and he's rich. He's a prince. If you go to the Philippines as a Westerner, you're a prince. The same way that NBA players can kind of pick who they want. When you're over there, you can kind of pick who you want. I was not kidding when I said that the Miss Universal Cebu, their beauty pageant for 2024 is next month. I'm not going to be in Cebu for February, but if I was in Cebu, I would go to that because I'd want to know. Am I celebrity enough to get a beauty pageant contestant? I don't know. I know that in the States, there's no way on earth I'm going to get like Miss Seattle or Miss New Jersey to be interested in me. She wants a millionaire. Miss Cebu, who happened to come from Leyte or wherever. I don't know what kind of cachet I have with her, but I would want to. I would find that out. That's the difference in the Philippines and the States. Para said, time to find a new Sarah. I tend to agree with Para there. I think that you can find a new Sarah very easily. You've got to get over to the Philippines to understand just how easily. My bigger watch out for Dano is don't fall in love with the first Filipina you meet when you get there, because it's going to be a different world and you will be tempted to. And I would say, decide that for the first 2 days, you are not going to fall in love. You are going to vet, you are going to explore, and you are going to keep your options open. I don't think you're going to go more than 2 days. Just from what I've seen of you, Dano, that Cupid's arrow is going to hit you. You're going to be locked in. But give yourself 2 days in the Philippines before you get committed to anybody, just to see what's possible. I hear good things about Mindanao, but it's so big it'll be impossible to hunt Sarah down. Be careful in Mindanao. Lots of Muslims, separatists. I have heard that Mindanao is the least safe place in the Philippines. I got a crush when I first saw Sarah in a video, but after getting over 100 mails from her, I'm hooked like a big fish. I'll wear a towel on my head. Mails, you don't have video chat. That's a problem. I video chat with my Filipina 3 to 4 times a day. Para, the lousy dating site, doesn't offer video chats. So I've seen. Okay, so Para does. All right. Here's the thing, just to bring Para up to speed, because I don't think that everything from your interview is possible. So Dano met Sarah through a dating service, not a dating site. And the dating service manages the communications between people, because that's how they make money, charging you for every email that you send, charging you for video chats. They have these escalating tiers. So the more of an engagement you want, email versus pics versus video chat, the more expensive it is. It's basically it's a big money grab. Because you're asking a lot of the questions I asked, which are, okay, you've talked to Sarah through email. You haven't talked to her in person. I do like the thing that you did, Dano, where you sent her a very specific box of gifts because you wanted to know if she was real. And when you saw her open that specific box with those specific gifts, you could at least say, this person did receive this box. These aren't just generic pictures. So, and Para, you're asking the right question. Except the dating service that he's going through screens emails. I was asking this too. So they are preventing people from exchanging communication. Can't send her your email address. Can't send her your YouTube address, which is what I would have tried. Any personal identification that would allow them to reach out to you directly gets cut off, which sounds very fishy, scammy to me, but that's what the service does. Given what I've heard, and Dano, feel free to jump in, the service doesn't really seem to want guys to build connections with these women. It wants guys to pay to communicate with these women, which is different. And so guys can find themselves paying an arm and a leg to maintain a connection with someone, because until they actually go to the Philippines and meet them, they're not going to have any of their personal information. I don't like that. I actually, after I did my interview with Dan and understood his story, I went to that services. They had a live stream going, and I was very disruptive because I was basically calling them a bunch of crooks and scammers. And I went through a line-by-line detail of, it's not Christian Filipina. It's someone else. The jury's out with me on Christian Filipina. I don't know if that one's any good or not. That's the one that nobody really seems to complain about. And that's one that I've been researching behind the scenes, but I haven't heard a real person who's talked about Christian Filipina and said it's okay. I've heard people advocate for it, but they feel like they're paid spokespeople for Christian Filipina. One guy did a live stream where he said he was trying Christian Filipina for the first time. And I went to his chat and said, hey, look, or no, it was his live stream. So I was in his chat during his live stream and said, look, I'm curious to know what your results are, because you're the first real person I've seen who's going to the site and giving it a test. And it was his first day, because he was saying, hey, it's my first day. I got like 10 hits. And I thought, well, it's your first day. They're probably feeding you hits because that's what they do. I want to hear what happens. And he never got back to me. So I don't know if it worked or if it didn't work. But I do know he said he was testing it out. And when I asked him for further details, he didn't come back with it. So I don't trust. Christian Filipina is a problem for me because you have to pay like $250 right off the start. That's like their cheapest engagement. And there's no way for you to really have any communication with the women on the site. until you pay. I went and checked them out. I didn't know how they worked. And I realized, oh, I can't really talk to anybody unless I pay. And it looks like the cheapest I could pay is $250. Well, I'm not doing that. But they call you right off the bat. Their customer service reps called me within an hour of me signing up. And I just thought, I told them, like, I don't know if I can trust you. I'm not giving you money unless I know I can trust you. So unless you can show me a way that I can believe that this is a legit site, then you're wasting your time. And they couldn't get me comfortable, and I'm just not going to spend money with them because I don't see the point. I know that if I go to the Philippines, I can find someone who I like, and it won't take me very much time. I don't know if I go through Christian Filipina, whether I'll meet real people or just get robots and scammers and all of that. So Dano mentioned a foreign affair, lousy business in business. Lousy business in business to separate expats from their money. They use other names here on YouTube. DIA did. Which one is DIA? Data in Asia. Oh, Data in Asia did not censor us. We started talking on Facebook Messenger, then moved to. See, if they do that, that makes sense. I looked at Data in Asia. I don't think a lot of sites don't seem to be as good now. The scammers have filtered in. I actually used Pine Love a year ago. That's how I met Lynn when I met her. Now, a year ago, the site was decent. There were plenty of scammers on it, but you could actually find real women, have real conversations, get to WhatsApp, get to know people, and it worked. At some point, it just became scammers, and nobody who you talk to seems to be real anymore. So I'm leery about all of the dating sites now. But since I've been to the Philippines and I know how easy it is to meet people when I'm there, I kind of don't care. Because I'll just go to Cebu. I can get off the airport, drop off at the mall, and like, okay, the world is my oyster. So that's more. When I go to the Philippines for 2024, I'm not going to go to meet somebody. I'm going to go with a clean slate, and I'm just going to have fun. Harass the people every week. Yep. Dan was talking about what he's doing. Sarah knows WhatsApp. So my next email to her, I'll explain how I hid my phone number in it, and she'll know what she has to do. Okay. I heard it before an affair. Stay away from them. Oh, yeah. Dano was saying stay away. Dating Asia was free. There were scammers I found, but lots of real women too, and it's free. Sarah's a real woman who needs a man with a big Dano. Yeah, Dano is trouble. He's good trouble, but he's trouble. I gotta watch. Yeah, I can't drink around Dano if there's a camera, because I'll end up mouthing off and saying all kinds of stuff, spilling all of my secrets. Yeah, it costs $7 an email to communicate with her. More if pictures were involved. We got into that. Yeah, they're really, that's a pretty scammy site. I mean, I understand what they're doing. They're basically extracting as much money out of guys as they can. Personally, I would prefer for them to have like a subscription service. So you pay monthly and you get like a decent service each month for your monthly fee, like adjust the fee to match. But that pay to play thing that they do, that only leads to them trying to fleece you for as much as possible. I'm just not a fan of the way they operate. And I don't recommend that anybody pursue a foreign affair, because we have an example from Dano of how crooked they can be. But what we're going to do, wait, let me make sure. This has been such a fun show. I knew you guys were going to get along. One thing that was funny when I sent as I was crafting a lot of emails this week, I did the post about the best wives in America, like the 26-year-old conservative Asian who grew up with her biological parents. One woman responded to that post and called me sick, which I thought was weird. Not that she said I was sick, but I thought, what's wrong with that post? Like, if you want to complain about some of my posts, okay. That one was pretty harmless. I've made more hard-hitting posts where I've talked about the problems in the West or why the Philippines is better. If you want to attack those, I get it. Me just making a joke about who the best wives are and getting called sick, that one was kind of weird. I thought it was a little bit lame. Wasn't worth really putting her on blast for, but to the haters out there, do better. If you're gonna bring the smoke, bring the smoke. Actually have something meaningful to say about what I'm saying and why you disagree. Otherwise, what's the point? Let me see. Para hates my guts. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. And I paid nothing to meet Filipinas in the first 3 weeks I was on it. Let me see. I just skipped around. I got around 650 messages and around 4,000 or so visited my profile. Yeah, see, that's why I expect, especially in the first few days that you're on a new dating site, you to be flooded with content because it's in their best interest to flood you with hits so you feel like you're getting a good deal or it's a worthwhile site. But after a 2-week period or so, maybe less, I would expect it to drop off like a cliff. You responded to every message, then gave up due to volume and only talked with the ones you were really interested in. Totally get that. Yikes, I don't want that, Para. Heck, before I saw Sarah, I was not even looking for a woman. By the way, she's 29, I'm 62. Age is just a number in the Philippines. They really don't care. I got to just pull up. Not that she's relevant to the story, but just because she's hot. Salma Hayek. I am not kidding. Of all the women I have ever seen in my life, ever, the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my life, Salma Hayek, and From Dusk Till Dawn. You line 1 million women up randomly in Times Square and you say, who ranks number one? Not a young Giselle Bundchen, Halle Berry, Iman, none of them. The one who looked the best to me, Salma Hayek and From Dusk Till Dawn. I am not delusional. There's no way on earth Salma Hayek would be interested in me. Not now, definitely not then, when she could get any man on the universe. Pretty sure she's married to like some $100 million guy. Don't blame her, don't blame him. But the idea is, Salma Hayek in the West is unattainable. If I'm in the Philippines, I don't know how close to Salma Hayek I could find. But I do feel like if I found something close to Salma Hayek, that is way more attainable over there than it's ever going to be over here. And if she's 28, all the better. Because Salma Hayek in this she was 29 when she filmed this. Look that up. Had fun looking that up because Salma Hayek is gorgeous. If I can find that, I'm done. I'm set. I wish, Dano. I wish. Oh man. Yeah, I would be ecstatic. Let me see. Paris saying, let me see. Still got lots after that, but not as many. She was 21 and you were 47 when you met. Yep. Age gaps. When I met, Lynn and I aren't together anymore, but I'm 50. It was last year. So I was 51 and she was 29. And that's normal. They really don't care. All except for one, almost all of the couples I saw that were Western and Filipina, huge age gap. I didn't see. It was weirder for me to see a Westerner and a Filipina who were close together in age than it was to see an age gap. I only saw one couple who were close in age. They looked like they'd been together for a while when they were in their early 20s because of their kids. So this is a fun show. We'll be back Tuesday. More to come. Got to be careful with you troublemakers. Dano is going to start all kinds of stuff. But, yeah, The goal is to keep the message moving forward. We need more guys to know about this Passport Bro movement, not just talking about how nice it would be, but actually booking flights, making trips, meeting women in the Philippines. Because once you're there, all the problems are solved. Once you see it, you don't have the questions anymore. Now you know. So we just got to get more guys to see it. Anyway, tune in next week, Tuesday, 7:30. We'll keep this conversation going, fellas. This is Last Good Man in Jersey signing out.